Welcome to Clinimetrix, the most comprehensive clinical and financial analytics platform available in Australia today. What you'll see here is the first of a number of videos which covers how to use Clinimetrix and the benefits you can gain as a medical practice from using data that provides substantial detail about the financial metrics of your business and significant benefits to the clinical outcomes for your patients and your practitioners. To start off with, we're looking at the landing page, which provides the sheets that you can access to gain information across the practice that you operate. Further videos will provide detailed information about how each of these sheets will work and how you can actually create connections between clinical and financial data, multiple clinical metrics and multiple financial metrics at any point in time. The first landing pages that you'll look at here, or the first landing sheet you'll look at here, consists of 20 odd sheets, each of which has a very specific and detailed benefit to your practice. The most commonly used one, of course, is the one called Quick View, which is the one we're quickly looking at now. It is an immediate and comprehensive look at all of the data financially that's going on in your practice right now. So by quickly opening this sheet and clicking on detailed information of the time, so the actual date, we'll look at February in this sample data, you get a quick view of what's actually gone on in February 2021. So in this particular instance, the practice has grown its revenues by 3.8%. It's increased its invoice volumes by over 10%. It has an average patient bill of $76 across all of its locations, of which there are a multitude, and revenues per hour are $131.68. From this point, we can dive in even further. You never have to leave this screen if you're just looking for detailed financial data. And we can look at practitioner behavior. This is number of invoices generated. We can also look at average patient bill by practitioner or fees generated for that period of time. We can drill into the type of practitioner we're interested in looking at. So in this case, let's just consider GPs, which would be owners and employees of the practice. And now you can see a more defined view of what's going on in the practice for the general practitioners. It has grown again 3% from 383 to 383 from 370, and invoice volume has also grown. Over on the right hand side here, we're looking at splits, and so you can actually look at invoices and how they're billed, be it bulk billed or privately billed. That's a percentage breakdown out of 100. We can also look at that in actual raw data and in fees generated. And down the bottom here, we're looking at revenue per hour. So this is by practitioner. It's a function of hours worked in the roster as it's booked in the roster, and then how you can actually, how much that GP is generated over that period of time. So that's just a quick view example, just one screen. We can also start looking at that data from an item code standpoint. So you can look at actually what codes have been generated, be that a standard consult or a telehealth consult or after hours or chronic disease management, health assessments and so on. And similarly, we can compare year-on-year data. This is represented in both tables and charts, as you can see down below. We also use a pivot table here, so we can actually change the order in which these are presented, so we can move this data around quite simply and provide a different view of the information. All of this data can, of course, be exported quite quickly and simply. The next sheet along is Invoice Details. So what you'd normally see is a list of the service descriptions in this column here, where you can actually get a detailed representation of what's been placed into your practice management software, and then search by that using keyword data. Of course, you can also search by doctor, by time of day, by invoice ID, and so on. All of that is available instantly and can be drilled down to any particular point in time, be it a single day or a single hour or a particular day of the week. So I want to look at all Fridays in February, maybe a simple solution. Okay, there's all Fridays in February. Now I know what's going on and what my trending is for that day. Also on this page, which is quite interesting, is details by payment date. So when the money has actually been receipted into your practice management software. So you now have a very quick way of finding information about payments that have been made, and in some cases payments that haven't been made. We use this as also a practice of our own to manage cash payments, which sometimes get lost in the processes, and it provides a really quick way of finding the holes in a process. Moving on, we have our snapshot page, which considers practitioners with a bunch of critical metrics. So you can look at fiscal year, month to date, week to date, calendar year to date, or set a custom period, and look at how a practitioner has behaved over that period of time, revenue generated, percentage of total fees generated, patient numbers, average patient bill over that period, patients per hour, days off, revenue per hour, month to date, number of blank spots in their book, in their appointment book, worked hours, and so on. A very, very quick way of getting a detailed representation by practitioner of what's going on in your practice. Lastly, in our revenue modeling solutions is what we call revenue trending. So this is a pivot table that allows us to view detailed information by demographics, by date, by doctor, and so on. So one of the things we use this for quite a lot is actual patient current age, so you can get a quick breakdown of how your demographics are working for the period of time by age group. You can move any of these pieces of information around, and of course that also changes the nature of the drop downs underneath the data. That's a very quick look at revenue information. Next thing is we start looking at, accounts receivable information, which is also critical if you're a private billing practice. It tracks all your outstanding bills and patients who haven't paid, particularly in our case for corporates, and that includes detailed information about the patient name and the actual transaction that's been created, what has been paid and what hasn't been paid, is critical, of course, to maintaining your cash flows. At a clinical level, there's a lot of other information available. We can look at patient history, as defined by the patient history condition that the doctor has listed, and whether that condition is actually active or inactive. That then allows us to set specific types of recalls, reminders, or research projects, as the case may be, to extract information about certain patients and provide updated clinical support for those patients if that condition is active. Tests requested is the amount of pathology requests that have been pushed out in that month. This is listed by the actual test itself and the practitioner that has actually issued the request, and then a detailed analysis beneath that. If you this can be linked if the data is correct in both your requests and your reports from your pathology provider, such that you can see if a patient has actually completed the pathology request requirement. The next screen we use quite a lot, which is actually where we check the results of pathology inbound. So any information that's been sent from a pathology provider is listed here by doctor and by patient name. And from here, we can actually set some simple parameters. So in this instance, we might just quickly search for HbA1c and then quickly create a search that says this is the amount of the number of patients who in the month of February have had a HbA1c test, and then search by an abnormal result or by the result value, as you can see down here. The list of tests reported are actually those that have been requested and returned from your pathology provider, and as you can see here, it's quite comprehensive and fairly significant list of requests. So HbA1c is here. In this instance, we would say let's find a value that is greater than 7.5. And now we have a list of all the patients where this patient group here, where their HbA1c result is in the diabetic range. We can also trend that data over time by selecting that patient list and then releasing the date of February, and that will see the last 3 test results that's available for that patient and how their HbA1c has actually been trending over the last 3 test results, be it up, down, or consistent. You can do a missed test report, so I'll release a couple of these bits of information here, and what we're looking at now is the ability to search for a condition. We might stick with diabetes at this point in time, find a test name that actually works for that particular patient type, pick the month and year the information was required, and then start looking for we're still looking at February, those patients who haven't had a test result in the last 3 months, and here is our patient list instantly reported of patients who've attended, who should have had a HbA1c, but have not had one. Moving on, we can go to diagnosis and actually start looking at more clinical data. This is the visit reason as documented by the GP on the day. So here we've not included this data in our demo data, but you can see here that we can select any particular type of visit reason and then drill down on how that actually has generated revenue or how that actually has influenced the behaviour of the practitioner. A prescription analysis provides a list of all of the drug classes or drugs by patient that have been issued in the period selected. Again, we're just looking at February. So in this particular instance, I can look at all those patients who've had a beta blocker prescribed to them in the month of February, and there's my list of patients. From there, I can then decide how to actually enact on that. One of the processes that we've been using is finding patients who have a high systolic blood pressure, who have not been prescribed any of the appropriate medications by drug class over the last 6-month period, and then trying to drill into why that actually has occurred. You can also map opioids, and also we can actually dive into DMMRs on this particular sheet as well. So I can actually find all the patients who've had 5 scripts or more in the period, and that will then allow us to offer the patient a DMMR if so required. So now we have a patient list just by clicking this button of 149 patients who have or could be eligible for a DMMR if the practitioner so desired. Patient observations allows us to search for any particular type of observation that's been recorded in the practice management software, so BMI, BSL, CV risk, diastolic blood pressure, K10 information, systolic blood pressure, temperature, waist measurements, weight, height, and so on. Any of these metrics can be extracted from the system so long as they're recorded in observations and then used to provide clinical outcomes. This may be, show me all the patients who have a systolic blood pressure greater than 150. And now we're looking at all of the patients. Now we're looking at all of the patients who have a systolic blood pressure of greater than 150 in the database. From here, we can then make decisions about whether they're on the appropriate regime of management, or if there's any comorbidities that may be impacting on this particular group of patients, and then drill into what clinical care may be the most appropriate for this type of patient in our systems. Included in the system, of course, is some other useful tools. So we have a complete immunisation register. You can check your weight analysis by GP. You also have a do not attend register that tracks those patients who make appointments but don't attend regularly. We track correspondence in detail. One of the samples we've been using ourselves is show me patients with a particular condition who need to see a specialist where that referral may not have been provided or may not have been executed by the patient. And lastly, 2 critical things if you're in accredited practice, your PIP data. So we can actually track our ongoing PIP information across the practices by any of the 10 PIP metrics, and we can compare periods as quickly as 2 clicks. And now I'm looking at how I performed across the period of improvement requirement, and in this instance, in this sample, this practice has improved and therefore is compliant with its PIP requirements, and so can claim its PIP revenues. Lastly, if you're doing data uploads, then you'll also be able to see that there are eHealth upload tracking, and of course, because this is also a PIP requirement over a quarter, you may find that you need to manage this and monitor it with your GPs, and this is a really quick and simple way of doing it. This is just a quick introductory video of the tools we have available in Clinimetrix. For further information, please check other videos on this site.